One in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, I'll end up melting the ceiling. What's going on, Javier Javier? It's your boy Javier Javier with the Javier Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. I got a special guest with me today. Her name is Brenda, and she's actually coming on. We spoke, and I think she's a wonderful person. And I wanted to bring her on, and we can kind of get into her story and learn a little bit about Brenda and talk about a few issues that Brenda thought would be nice to talk about. How are you, Brenda?
I'm fine. I think it's humorous. You think I'm a good person. I know better.
Well, we all tend to think highly of others, even when they don't always deserve it. But so far, you've shown nothing but to be a good person, at least to me.
Yeah. So I don't remember even where I saw you. It was an interview with maybe Tom Junk. Was that where I saw you? Somebody.
I
Somebody. I saw an interview, and it seemed to be a really good one. And I saw a tweet of yours, and so I said you should interview me. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story. I'm pretty sure it'd be interesting, something that people might want to learn about.
Its background is I'm 63-year-old trans woman. I came out in like 1993, and I became homeless in the 2000s, and was in a couple of shelters. And I've been able to get into a place, an apartment place that's subsidized. So like I have like a social worker, and I talk to people, and I get support, and that's all well and good. I enjoy talking to people on the internet about political issues, about philosophical issues. I do a lot of interactions with people who believe the earth is flat, somewhat with people who are creationists, very conservative, religious or theist people, people on the far political right, and occasionally less so people who are on the far political left. I myself am I consider myself a standard liberal Democrat in America politics, meaning I would like more things like healthcare and more services from the government, but I don't want to smash the government, and I don't want an ethno state, and I don't want anarchy, and I don't want libertarian utopias. I just would like things to be a little bit better than what they are.
Yeah.
I feel like I've actually learned a lot. Primarily, I've debated with flat earthers, and I learned a lot from doing so, because in doing so, I had to learn many different things, learn about their different objections to the globe Earth, but also to discern the difference between, there are many people, the flat Earth community is interesting to me because you have a number of people who are there who are grifters, who I am convinced do not believe the Earth is flat, but will run a major channel and do so for Patreon contributions and AdSense monies, various, or in some cases simply for the reward of pulling the wool over a lot of people's eyes in some cases. So those are emotional rewards. And so then you have, and then in addition to that, you have mostly extremely conservative, religiously oriented people who literally believe in the Bible, and they read in the Bible that it says that that confirms their belief that the earth is flat with a dome over it. Other people a fair number of them are, they have cognitive disabilities. Many of them are ex-felons, ex-sex offenders, people with various personality disorders who are um, not very good people in some cases.
What
In other,
what may I ask? What exactly was it about the flat earthers that got you into actually debating them? Was it something that just came across your way and you found it
yeah,
interesting?
um, it strikes me as a very simple. It strikes me at first as something obvious and easy, and it turns to be less so because um, the grift. So somebody that knows that the Earth is a globe, but is putting forth arguments against it, puts up better arguments than somebody who was simply not scientifically well informed or informed by their extreme fundamentalism puts forward. So as a consequence, I've had to learn many new facts about science and the Earth, astronomy, geodesy, things like that, that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And it's become interesting to me in that sense, learning different types of things, but also learning to overcome myself, because they will almost always launch personal attacks, because when a trans woman debates with them, and they're a hyper fundamentalist, I would call somebody who thinks that the Earth, looks at the Bible, sees it says that the Earth is flat with a dome over it, I would call that hyper fundamentalism. Regular fundamentalists acknowledge that the Earth is a globe and revolves around the sun. But hyper fundamentalists is that type. And so when they meet me, they will, and if they're losing the debate, they realize that they launch into quite a bit of personal attacks. And I've been through sort of an arc of dealing with my own emotions, and how to deal with my own emotions when people get angry with you because you have you can dismantle their belief structure, or in the case of the grifters, you threaten their income.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting to that. And I see the flat Earth as kind of a microcosm of the larger political arena, where I perceive a lot of, in some cases, bad actors, grifters, who take advantage of people who have strong political beliefs. Let's say you're conservative or very much on the left. There are people who will take advantage of that fact about you in order to sell you something. We're going to sell you T-shirts or MAGA caps.
Oh yeah.
Right? And they want you to contribute to their campaign, and they do so by misrepresenting the facts, and it bears a striking relationship to the microcosm of flat Earth, in that you have people who are using rhetoric, disinformation, outright lies, in order to manipulate and deceive another group of people for their perceived benefit, whether it's financial or political.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So it's a few things that I want to hone in on, because you did say that when somebody's losing a debate, it's clear that you're passionate about actually the truth. And I think what most people should be seeking is the truth, regardless of where you stand politically or what your history or background is. The facts should stand independent of who you are as a person. So they would launch these personal attacks against you because you're trans. What is that like? What is your experience as a trans person? You came out a long time ago. You came out, you said in 1990?
1993, I changed my name legally and was out. the experience in the early 90s was when a lot of people in the gay community were coming out to friends and family. And it was in response to the AIDS and HIV epidemics. A lot of gay people came out during like the late 80s and 90s. And it was that coming out which I think laid the seeds for further advances in society, for instance, like gay marriage and things like that. It was that coming out. But when I came out at that time, so as trans, it was, I talked with people in the gay community who were not informed about transgender issues. Uh, People are more informed today. Attitudes towards women and men, towards sexism, attitudes towards sexuality, and attitudes towards transgenderism have changed dramatically since when I was young. I can remember being in high school, and the issue at that time was that people were upset about, that I recall, was the insistence of the feminists in being referred to as Ms. MS period, rather than Miss or Mrs. That was a political issue at the time. Many of those early feminist issues are like so taken as granted today, but they were big issues at the time. And so beliefs and attitudes have changed a great deal in the intervening years. Some things never change, but what's socially conservative or liberal, what is a controversy and what is not a controversy, changes considerably over time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I came out in the 90s. I had to educate in my local gay community,
Was it very effective? Did you feel like the gay community accepted you?
Yeah. Well, there was an issue. There was an issue about trans women being permitted to play. The LGBT community would have events and things. It was small, and they would have things like, say, for instance, play a softball game. Well, who do the trans people in the community get to play? Do they get to play as women or as men? And that was a big issue at first for a little while. And so I have, in my opinion, what happened is they discovered that by and large, trans women suck at sports. And so we were not a threat to anybody. And the threat, the person that you want on your softball team is the bull dyke who can punch it out there. You don't want the trans woman, because she's going to suck and she's going to check her nails and she's going to worry about that, and she's not going to be the greatest softball player in the world. So from my point of view, so I've seen these issues about sports, for instance, play out, at least in my local area, as being not as serious as people take them.
Yeah, I definitely, the sports right now is a big hot topic that people are focusing on, as far as trans women being able to play in women's sports. And there's a lot of cases where the trans women are out competing the other women in the sports, and especially
I mean, I'm open to that. I'm open to that position. I think, yeah, undeniably, when you are a male to female trans person, and you go through puberty, you gain muscle mass, you gain bone mass, and you are larger and stronger than the average woman. And I think that is something that people should respect. I have no idea how to solve the political issue. But I think that as a population, trans people are not a particular threat to sports, because most of us would be more concerned with passing, more concerned with other things. It doesn't strike me as a huge issue. Maybe that's just my perspective and my experience. My experience was that locally within a small gay community, it was resolved rather quickly because none of the trans women were particularly good at sports, and so the worry dissolved because there really wasn't there really wasn't any kind of threat that made itself apparent. So
Do you
and so
think
maybe the national stage is different. Maybe the global stage is different. I don't know how to solve that.
would you be open to trans people being able to have their own sports and compete against each other? Just like
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think that um, I think that my understanding is the rules are that you have to be on hormone replacement therapy for a certain amount of time. You have to have had a certain amount of time spent living and working as a woman and being on hormone replacement therapy. And it seems to me that would be good enough, because taking testosterone blockers and taking estrogen is going to have a large impact on your ability to perform physically.
yeah, I mean, there's yeah,
From
and,
my experience.
yeah, in most of these cases, a lot of these professional athletes are the cream of the crop. So myself personally, I haven't put much thought into the trans issue when it comes to sports. I figured, why not give trans people the option to create their own league, and therefore, just like women wanted their own league when it came to men, they didn't want women playing against men in basketball. They went and created their own league. I thought that would be a better way of just, making the playing field that much more even, because everybody then is on, um, everybody's competing on a more similar starting point. Um, but
I
but
don't know. I don't know how to solve it. I don't know how to solve the
yeah,
problem. I really don't. I can only relate my personal experience. My personal experience was that locally within in the people that I knew, the trans people, the trans contingency was small and was presented no serious threat to anybody's um, ego within the athletic arena.
yeah. So when did you get? I know you say you identify as a liberal Democrat. Do you remember when you decided that politics was an interest of yours, and that it was something that you wanted to actually participate in, or to identify as a certain political party or label?
Well, when politics decided it was interested in me.
Mm,
When I was going to psychologists, I saw therapists. Um, one of the things I was told was that I should be careful. I should carry. I needed to carry a signed statement from my psychotherapist that I was undergoing treatment, so that I could present that to any possible policeman who would possibly harass me or arrest me for
mm,
cross-dressing. Um, so when it became apparent to me that my gender expression and my presentation was a problem to other people, then it became political. Then I became interested in politics. It made,
mm.
I think that that's how it is for a lot of people. Um, you know, um, However, I think that education does a great deal. Locally here in Minnesota, we had a woman her name was Debbie Davis, and I have lost track with her over the years. But she was male female trans person, and she had a business of educating corporate and government groups about transgender issues, and I believe those efforts on her part to educate, for instance, um, the government, the police, corporate corporate entities about trans issues was something that I benefited from, because I believe it changed beliefs and attitudes among those people, and I feel I saw that in my life, where there was understanding instead of ignorance and fear. Um, uh, um, and so I had a personal experience with that when one of the first times I came out and was dressing cross-dressed at a local county fair. There were policemen following close behind me, talking about me, which I was initially a little bit concerned about, but then I could hear their conversation, and it was entirely sympathetic, and entirely based on what I knew to be
Ignorance.
no, it wasn't ignorant. They were informed, and they were informed, obviously, at least in my mind, from the work of activists who had sought to inform corporate, government, police entities about the issue, and that made me feel safer and more comfortable, to know that even the police that were behind me at the county fair were informed and had facts, and I could hear their talk, and that made me feel safer. And I've always had actually a good relationship with the police. I've never had problems with them, and I don't know why other people do, but I have not.
What state do you live in?
Minnesota. I think I said that. I live in Minnesota.
Okay.
So it's also maybe my experience would have been vastly different if I was somewhere else, but it's a relatively progressive state, and so politically, I'm in favor of a more liberal policies in the government. I think that the advancement to gay marriage was a great thing, and I think that we should be in the business of making people's lives a little bit better. If we can, things like healthcare are greatly needed by a lot of people, and I don't think that that's too much to ask from the government, which would be to provide some sort of either directly or through
a public option.
Through a public option, some sort of means of where the government could make healthcare accessible to a large number of people. I think that would be great, and there's plenty of Western nations who do that and do so without any real trouble. And I think it's scandalous that we don't have that.
Well, I don't know how much of my content you've seen. At the current moment, I'm not a fan of the government getting involved with healthcare to that certain extent. It comes to me personally, it becomes the role of the government and what's the job of the government. And I know many people make the argument that other Western countries actually have socialized medicine or some form of it that provides health care for the citizens, or at least pays for it. I think that the issue comes in that we all pay taxes. The government collects our taxes to provide certain functions in America. And then there are people who pay taxes who don't want to pay for certain health care for certain people. That may include trans issues. It's definitely on the right, people who may consider themselves conservative. They don't want to pay for somebody's sex change or abortions, for example. So that's the argument on the right. Now, there's a lot that I've learned about the universal health care or a public option, and some things I'm not buying. Some things I do think might be possible, but I don't want anybody to die. I don't want anybody to suffer because they don't have health care. And so we still have a lot of work to do there, to try to figure out how we can make at least healthcare more affordable or cheaper for people to be able to get the access that they need. I wanted to ask you, right now, do you think that the LGBTQ plus community is doing a lot of good in America? Do you feel like there is a, a strong support there, or is there tension between the LGBTQ community amongst the different parts of it? Do you feel like trans needs are being addressed by the LGBTQ community?
I actually don't know. Um, I was active in the community like through the 90s and maybe a little bit into the early aughts. But actually since there, I've just not been interested because it's just not my thing. Um, I don't travel in those circles. It's not, so I'm sort of no longer, they're no longer the central part of my living. I just go about and live my life.
Yeah.
I just go about and do the things that I want to do. And I don't really see myself as this or that. So I'm not aware of what current issues are within either the LGBT community or specifically within trans communities. I'm not aware of what major issues they're dealing with. I hear a little bit here and there on Twitter, on the internet, but I don't pay it a great deal of attention. My main interest is in the things I'm doing right now, which is debating people onto the internet, and I'm also taking classes. I'm allowed, as in the state of Minnesota, to take classes at the university at a reduced rate, and so I'm taking a class at the university, and so those are the things I'm interested in, and that's, I haven't really connected up with how the community is. I don't really travel in those circles, and I don't know much about what is or is not a matter of huge concern. I suspect that I would not be appreciated because I am consider myself a liberal Democrat, and I perceive that there is a great deal of very far left beliefs among the various communities. Maybe I'm wrong, and I would not agree with that. I don't agree with anarchism or with Marxism. I'm not a Marxist, and I'm not an anarchist. I'm just a liberal Democrat, and I'm just an ordinary person.
I appreciate that about you. So what I want to do is I want to get more into the conversation about debating flat earthers. I do want to talk a little bit about religion because, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the Patreon portion. So we're going to wrap this part of the conversation up. If anybody wants to see the other side of the conversation that we're going to have, you have to go to patreon.com/the Javier Javier show to get the rest. Brenda, do you want to tell people how they can find you? Or
I'm on Twitter, I guess. It's Brenda Von Ahsen. That's my Twitter handle. I have a YouTube channel called Brenda Debates, but I'm kind of not very good at publishing stuff. It's just audio recordings of me debating people, or sometimes of other people debating, and I'm not very good. I'm a terrible content creator.
Well, maybe we can change that. We'll see.
I just record these debates and stuff. Sometimes I don't even have to participate. They can just go themselves, and they say absolutely crazy things. So,
well, yeah. Well, go check her out. Follow her on Twitter. Be nice, have a conversation. Brenda seems like a very reasonable person, and thank y'all for watching, and go support at Patreon to get the rest of the show. And thank you, Brenda, so much. And we are out. Peace.
1 in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, I'll end up melting the ceiling.